Hi, and welcome to our third and final part of Rethinking Culture in the French Classroom. In our first two videos, we explored some key ideas about language, culture, and identity. Now, let's take a look at what that actually looks like in practice. Shifting to intercultural teaching doesn't mean throwing out all of your lesson plans. Often, it's about small but meaningful changes about how we design activities, frame our lessons, and interact with students. Intercultural learning is an ongoing process. Students aren't expected to master culture. Instead, they learn to notice differences, reflect on them, and engage with multiple perspectives. So how can we support this in the classroom? Let's start with a common pattern: generalizations. Instead of saying, French people believe this, we can model more precise language. Some people in France might think this, especially in certain contexts. This small shift shows students that culture is not uniform. It's shaped by place, experience, and perspective. It also helps students move away from essentialist thinking, the idea that we can make broad claims about entire groups of people. You can even make this visible for students by modeling it out loud. For example, if a student says, "I went to France and all French people are rude," you might respond with, "That's something a lot of people say. Let's think about that. What might feel rude from our perspective that could actually be interpreted differently in another cultural context? What might be considered normal or appropriate to certain people when they're communicating, even if it feels different to us?" This helps students move from making generalizations to thinking more precisely about context and perspective. Next, let's focus on the power of why questions. Rather than asking students to simply identify a cultural difference, we can ask, why might this perspective exist? Whose voice is being represented? And how might this look from another point of view? These questions encourage deeper thinking and help students move beyond surface level observations. This aligns with Michael Byram's idea that learners should develop skills of interpreting and relating, not just knowledge about other cultures. We can also rethink familiar activities. For example, instead of asking students to present facts about a country, we might ask them to compare perspectives across different communities, or reflect on how their own identities shape what they notice and value. Finally, assessment. If we want students to develop intercultural understanding, we need to assess more than just vocabulary or pronunciation. One approach is reflective journals, where students document moments of curiosity, confusion, or perspective shifts. For example, a prompt might be, describe a time when your understanding of a culture changed. What influenced that change? We can also focus on the process of learning, looking for evidence that students are asking questions, considering multiple viewpoints, and reflecting on their own assumptions. This doesn't mean that accuracy doesn't matter, but it does mean that we value how students engage with difference, not just how closely they match a standard. These kinds of shifts may seem small, but over time they can significantly change how students engage with language and culture both inside and outside the classroom. Ultimately, our goal is to support students in becoming thoughtful, reflective communicators, people who can navigate cultural complexity with awareness and respect. And that's important, because language learning is never just about language. It's about how we understand ourselves and relate to others. Well, that's a wrap for me. Thank you so much for following along with this series. If you have any questions, connections, or comments, please leave them below. I hope this series leaves you something that you can take into your classroom.